Welcome back to another episode of STEM in Stilettos. I'm your host, Zofia Morales, and I am here with a special guest, Stella Kafka. If you are a female founder looking to navigate the challenges of the tech industry while balancing your personal life, or perhaps you find yourself struggling with loneliness and missing a feeling of belonging, being the only woman in the room a lot of times, and especially the only one at the executive table, it can feel quite isolating. And so, if you've experienced any of that, today's episode is for you. Today, we're talking about STEM, strategy, and the human element. I'm going to introduce our guest. Her name is Stella, as I mentioned earlier, and she's a scientist, strategist, and nonprofit leader passionate about making science accessible. As a CEO and executive director for major scientific organizations, she's led transformative initiatives in astronomy, climate resilience, equity, and STEM education, bridging research, policy, and public engagement. From advancing global corporations across communities to championing, that's harder than it looks, championing programs that empower women and youth in science, Stella's work centers on connection, purpose, and the power of diversity to drive discovery. Welcome to the show, Stella. I'm so happy to have you here with me today.
Such a privilege to be here. Thank you for having me, Sophia.
So, tell us a little bit about your path, how you ended up in STEM and the C-suite, because many women have A, challenges remaining in STEM, and B, much less achieving C-suite type positions. So tell us about your journey a little bit.
Well, I was born and raised in Greece. I'm one of two children for my family. My brother, who is 2 years younger than me, was raised the same way that I was. My parents always believed providing equitable opportunities to both their kids. I was my dad's little daughter slash son. So he raised me to be fearless and he raised me to try new things, not to be afraid to try new things. And the same with my brother, of course. So both our parents from very young age fueled that curiosity that kids are known for. Explore the world, be brave, be fearless, be yourself. So I
Yes.
grew up in a very privileged family in that sense. This is something that not every kid has in their immediate environment. And at some point growing up, I found that I had this kind of natural curiosity that was cultivated about the world, about nature. How does it work? What happens if I touch it, if I break it? And that actually continued until I chose my field at the university. So I went to the University of Athens in Greece and I got my bachelor's in physics, which actually even fueled my curiosity even more. Like, I want to learn more, I want to do more, I want to be the person who discovers nature. So even after my very first couple of years at the university, I decided I want to become a researcher. I want to further my studies. And I chose astrophysics because the universe is a fascinating place. It's vast and it's unapproachable, but still, on our little rock, we can still study it. And we need to be very smart, very clever about the ways that we study it because we just can't travel. We can't get a scoop of stars, right? We can't
Yeah,
exactly
yeah.
go and take a picture, a natural picture.
Let's just
So
pop over there and see what conditions are like. Yeah.
yeah, wouldn't that be nice? But that's not exactly what we do, right? We use our eyes, we use our imagination, we use science, scientific techniques, we use instruments that sometimes we develop and we put everything together to build a four-dimensional picture of something that we experience in a snapshot. And by four-dimensional, I mean it's like the three dimensions in space that we all experience, but also time, how things
Right.
evolve, where they came from, right? How old they are, how big are they, and where are they going to go, what's happening to them. So I decided to further my studies here in the United States. So I went to Indiana University. I was accepted with a full scholarship there, very fortunate, for a master's and a PhD in astrophysics. And I spent 6 absolutely amazing years in Bloomington, Indiana. I'm a true Hoosier at heart. I really love and respect my alma mater. The people there made extremely friendly. My thesis advisor just let me roam. We were doing research, following pretty much what science was telling us, asking questions and trying to answer them, and asking more questions and admitting how much we don't know. and how much we want to know. And after that, I followed more or less an academic career. So I was actually a site director at the Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory down in Chile. So I spent 2.5 years in Chile for a student program. We're bringing interns there to do scientific projects. I was at Caltech for 2 years at the Spitzer Science Center. This is where Spitzer was a space telescope. So this is where I use data from space. I got a fellowship from the NASA Astrobiology Institute to do a project trying to figure out whether stars that we see and explore out the universe that host Earth-like planets could actually host life around them.
Right.
So all these absolutely fascinating projects, learning a lot, running around, going out to mountaintops for telescopes and telescope time. And at some point, moving around in this kind of position is not exactly sustainable long term. So when I decided I wanted to actually park my things at some point, I made a conscious decision to go to the nonprofit world. I really wanted to help people experience the same kind of beauty that I experienced through science. So from there, I went to the American Institute of Physics. Actually, I was a journal manager. If you think of
Nice.
how scientists communicate their science, it is through peer review research. So what we
Yes.
do after we finish the project, we write it up and we send it to a publisher that sends it to anonymous peers who actually look at the science, making sure the arguments we make is sound, making sure the conclusions make sense, scientific method here, right?
Are
And
supported by
then
what's in the paper. Yes, my husband was an editor for many years.
uh, there
Yeah.
you go. So making sure that the science is sound, then we share it through a journal with the rest of the scientists to read and advance their science like that. So I was there for 2 years, but then an opportunity arose at the American Association of Variable Star Observers. As a parenthesis, variable stars are stars whose brightness we can measure within timescales that we understand. Like the sun is a variable star, it changes
Okay.
with
Yeah.
time. So there are lots of individuals who are studying the stars, professional astronomers, but there are also lots of amateur astronomers that have binoculars and telescopes in the backyard who are actually taking data in support of this kind of projects. So that particular organization was doing exactly that, supporting
Yeah.
those amateur astronomers and connecting them with professional astronomers and projects, etc., in order to advance science.
Exactly.
And
There's a nice cluster of those out in like the Tucson, Arizona area. It's
oh,
like
absolutely,
a
dark
hot spot
skies. Oh
for
my
people
God.
with telescopes in their backyard.
Yes. And dry climate and everything, everything. So at that time, I was a really good fit because I had some nonprofit experience at the American Institute of Physics at Cerro Tololo as a director, but also that was my field of expertise, variable stars that are causing a lot of trouble. So I actually was hired as a CEO of the organization, and together we started building the modern AAVSO, American Association of Variable Star Observers, for everyone, everywhere. It's an international organization with members and observers all over the world, connecting, again, amateur astronomers with professional projects, but also building educational material, building databases for data to come through, and all the processes that go behind them. It was a very interesting first for me as a scientist and as a woman being that particular position, because this is where I experience exactly what you mentioned, a little bit of loneliness, a little bit completely out of touch. Who are my peers? Who is my support group,
Yeah.
right? In this particular position of power. I was leading a world-class organization. I was working with my board, I was working with my staff, I was working with a group of absolutely amazing volunteers. I was in the middle of everything. It's a small organization, so it's hands on. So it means that
Yes.
I was running programs, but at the same time, I was doing budgeting, I was doing communications, I was doing board development, I was caring for my staff, HR, I was responsible for operations. Everything that a small
All
nonprofit
the
needs
hats. Yeah.
goes through the CEO, right? So you get the title, but then you get a lot of balls in the air, lots of hats on your head. So how do I do that? And this is where I found out that actually I had to reinvent myself and I had to reinvent the group of individuals I reach out to for support, because the support I had so far from my peers was not appropriate for the level of seniority that I had. And this is where we're talking about being the first, being the only one, being isolated.
Yeah.
Isolation is actually real. And I was fortunate to actually recognize that from the onset and reach out to some of my colleagues who led similar organizations and who guided me. They were men who guided me towards resources, provided advice, provided benchmarks. How do you
Yeah.
compare your success, right? And also guided me to work with volunteers at the level that each volunteer was appropriate to work at, either leadership positions on my board or in committees, or even individuals who were running and participating in different projects and programs.
Yeah, let's kind of zoom out in on this a little
Mm,
bit because I think a lot of times when we start down this path, we don't realize what's at the end, right? The
mhm.
aspiration to lead a company and to do the thing. So, what were the resources specifically that you found? What were the areas where it's like, oh, shoot, I can't do that anymore the way I was? For example, getting support from another woman in the office. How did that look for you?
So I couldn't do anything the way I used to do it, let me put it this way, because at some point I didn't have peers around me.
Right.
So if something was not working or something felt wrong or something looked like it wasn't working anymore because it was outdated, the way we always were doing things are not necessarily the way you should be doing them in the future. I didn't have someone to actually go to and say, so how do you do it? Right?
Yeah.
How does the world look like? Where do I find resources for my small nonprofit in a way that helps move the mission forward but doesn't break the bank? Right?
Yes.
So small
Uh-huh.
nonprofit, small budget. How do I approach donors? Who are those donors to approach to actually bring in more money? There's no money, no mission for
Yeah,
nonprofits.
exactly. You are
How
done.
do I grow? No, you're right. How do I define my business lines? How do I even assess my business lines so that I understands what is impactful and help my boards to make educated decisions, informed decisions for the future of this organization without taking too much risk, because can we afford that much risk?
Yeah.
So that the resources I found, again, I reached out to people I knew and trusted. They sent me to organizations such as SES or SA that have to do with association management, and they have a huge suite of educational material. But one of the things I was really craving, other than Googling online or going to somebody's webpage and downloading, books and manuals, etc., was this kind of human element when you actually bounce ideas off of someone, you ask them how they do it, you ask them
Right.
what doesn't work for them, what are their lessons learned when they were trying something, right? You tell
Exactly.
them what you feel does not work for you. And at some point, based on my experience and all the reading, etc., I started seeing little elements in my nonprofit that did not work for us. I knew they didn't work, but I didn't know why.
Mm.
And even defining that why was extremely important for me in order to be able to actually understand the how we're doing things, what it is that we're doing that does not work, how do I assess it so that I provide a data-based assessment to my board to have the conversation. And even taking a step back, what kind of conversation do I want to have with my board? So all those things, I have to tell you, it took me 2 years or so in order to even realize what's going on and even convince or actually have a conversation with a volunteer board that was very attached to the status quo about change. And change is a boo-boo word, right?
Yeah,
Everybody
change
wants
is a
change.
hard sell because you got to
It's a
let go of
hard.
what you've got right now to get it.
Exactly. Exactly that. Everybody wants change, but nobody wants to change. And
Hmm.
the one does not come without the other.
Yeah. Well, and we're up on our first break already. But when we come back, I want to dig into having that first, what do I want to say, set of vulnerable conversations with other executive leaders because I think it can feel really scary as a woman to admit that you don't have all the answers. And I'd like to dig into that a little bit more when we come back. Over the break, as if you're a regular listener, you know, I like to provide some homework for you. And so I would like you to spend some time with where are you feeling isolated and siloed in your work, in your life. Identify what some of those points are where it's like, what if I had more contact with and a safe space with people who have the experiences needed to resolve what I'm facing. Yeah, so spend some time about where those areas are and hang with us. We'll be right back from the break.
Oh, check it out, we're here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. No fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales. I'm back with the amazing and wonderful Stella Kafka. And so before the break, you were talking to us a little bit about how you started to reach out to others to get the support that you needed, guidance, feedback about leading an organization. Tell me how you approached those first few conversations. Were you a little leery about having the conversation? I know many women feel like that's a really vulnerable moment.
So you mentioned a word that is very interesting, vulnerable, right? This is where most of us go back to our scientific training. As a scientist, if not anything else, we learn how to admit that we don't know everything.
Yes,
That's why we're looking, right? That's why we're
exactly. We
searching.
don't
That's why
have
we're
the
researching.
answer.
We don't have the answer. So the question that is always valuable as a starting point is when I'm asking for help, when I'm asking somebody to brainstorm with me, what is the question I want to ask them?
Mm,
What will be helpful to me? What will be valuable to resolve a certain situation? How much do I want to disclose, right? How much do I trust the person?
yes.
And also, that does include some soul searching. Just make sure that your ego doesn't get in the way. You have to accept to admit to another person that, hey, I don't know everything, and I would like you to be my mentor. So I don't remember who I was talking to, and they recommended a specific individual to approach. And they said she would be a really great mentor to you. And heads up, she's a no nonsense CEO of a nonprofit. She's going to tell it as it is. And I'm like, you know something? That's how I feel as well. I don't want anyone to sugarcoat it for me. It's not going to help. We're not
Yeah.
having like a soul conversation. We're having a pragmatic conversation around the reality of the nonprofit world. It's the environment within it's operating and the challenges, some of the challenges I'm finding in order to communicate that and work towards a sustainable future for an organization I'm deeply involved in. I care a lot and also was entrusted to me. I mean, being a CEO is not a title, it's actually a responsibility and
Yes.
accountability. So you really want to push things forward in the most spectacular way you can, which means you want the organization to be relevant, you want the organization to be sustainable, you want the organization to be impactful. So, how do I do that? These are some very, very big words, right? So, the person that I approached, her name is Joan Kemmens, and she was actually the founder of the Association of Women in Science chapter here in the Cambridge area. An absolutely dynamic woman who actually agreed to meet me for lunch. And
Nice.
we went out, and I was sitting here, completely rookie CEO, right? And trying to tell her, but I'm doing all those things and they don't understand. And I have no idea why I can't reach people at the level they need me to. And there's some weird things that are happening or have been happening forever in terms of operations, in terms of the way people think and why and how, etc. She's like, stop. You're doing it wrong. That's not how you think. You're a scientist. And she started telling me, change your mindset, right? This is not your personal research project. This is a group of individuals who care about something, build on the mission, build on that. And she didn't tell me things I didn't know. She focused, though, the conversation on the
Right.
things that needed to be my priority and needed to be my focal points. So I am really grateful for her and for everything. We had several lunches actually after that, and she was always straightforward. She was always direct with me. And she coached me in a way that I didn't know I needed to be coached. She became a mentor to me. And sometimes you discover things about people. And I actually, at some point, I told her, I want you to be my mentor. She's like, I can definitely be your mentor. You need to actually think differently. It's not about me offering something to you, it's that you changing your mindset. And again, I appreciated that because it's,
Yeah.
again, we can all complain, oh, it's lonely at the top. But at some point, we need to realize that in order to actually find a peer group, we need to look at the right directions and also realize that we need to actually look within what is more valuable and helpful to us in the situations that we're
Yeah.
in.
I think there's a beautiful thing that came out of this interaction. I love that she was extremely direct about it because a lot
Mm-hmm.
of us want the end result, but we don't want to be different. We talked about change being
Mm-hmm.
difficult, right? We want it,
Yeah.
but we don't have to be different to have it. And one of the things that changes a bunch when you go into executive leadership is how you think about it, how you frame it, and the things that you focus on. And that can be
And one of the
really, really challenging.
absolutely. And one of the things that she told me is to let go of my frustrations. Because, as a scientist, as a female scientist, I have been the only one in panels. I have been the only one in committees. I have been one of few in conferences. I have been, maybe the token woman on a panel, right? Or
Right.
the only speaker, female speaker in a session. And at some point, you're frustrated. It's like even the way that individuals introduce you at conferences is different. Even the way that people approach you afterwards to ask a question is different. And that is not respectful necessarily, but they do it because people bring their own unconscious biases in their everyday life. So, in the position I was in, I really needed to actually, again, this is where you switch the narrative. I needed to let go of my frustrations, recognize them, right? Yes, now this situation where I'm frustrated again because disrespect or because
Right.
people are trying to mansplain to me or because I'm the expert in the room and no one recognizes it, right? And I'm
Yes.
trying to gently tell individuals that I know what I'm talking about
Yes.
without raising my voice and without taking it personally. These are things that we need to work on in order to be successful. And it's extremely
Exactly.
difficult because no
Exactly.
matter how much you say, I don't have an ego, well, I do have a personality.
Yeah, exactly. And ego is a little bit part of it. I have a friend who is extremely frustrated. She's like, why am I always the one that's having to educate everybody around me? And it's like, because you're the one who is the unique one. It's going to be that way because they don't know anything different. It's your role, responsibility, whatever, however you want to frame it, as being the different one to expose them to, yeah, I'm different, but I'm also knowledgeable and I'm deserving of respect and all of the things. And sometimes you have to draw lines and sometimes you just have to put up with the shit because they don't know
Yes, and,
different.
and also expectations, right? When you have a
Yeah.
100-year-old organization that was run in a specific way, and then you have individuals who've been there for decades, right? And then again, they're bringing their own biases in the
Yeah.
role. As a professional, you don't want to be a mother figure. You want to
Yes.
be the scientist, you want to be the professional, you want to be the change maker. And when everybody expects the mother figure to come up, you're like, okay, so why do I have to be a mother figure? You're not a father figure, right? So
Yes.
when the expectations are different, when the, again, accountabilities are different, then you really need to reframe who you are and what your value proposition is and do it nonstop without
Yes.
repeating yourself. because people's beliefs and biases come in the room when they
Yeah,
interact with you.
exactly.
Um,
And they change slowly. But the only way those biases change is by having the experience with you. It's the only way they
yes,
change.
that's right. And you can do it in little subtle ways to change the narrative and normalize something that was not
Yeah.
exactly normal out there. And that can be as simple as giving a talk and using female pronouns for the scientists instead of male pronouns for scientists.
Yes.
For example, so when an astronomer goes at a telescope, she brings her observing program with her. So she needs to prepare and she needs to actually do some research before on the star that she's going to study, and she needs to know the instruments. So she goes in with a lot of prep work to run a night program at the telescope. So how a scientist looks like, how a scientist sound, how a scientist
Is described.
behave in general is
Yes.
described, is perceived, is different when you're changing even small pronouns. And when a female stands in front of a group, in front of an audience, being the subject matter expert to give a talk, to present something that people are interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that when I stand up to do that, it helps me to focus on the commonalities in some ways that I have with the group. In other words, not to kind of release as much of the different feeling that I have. And I think that helps me to connect with the group as much as humanly possible, being the quote
Yeah,
unquote different one. Yeah.
yes.
So let's talk about advocating for yourself. What have you learned from moments where you've been challenged in your career and you've had to like really step out and go, okay, this is what I need here?
I learned how to ask for it or even how to look for it. I learned how to identify those who are really willing to be my mentors from those who are not really interested in anything I have to say. And I also learned not to care about those who don't want to be in my corner. It's women, we want to be likable, right? We want to
Exactly.
be right. And that's why we're nice. We're raised to be nice. Remember, we're
Absolutely.
raised to be seen and not heard. We're raised to smile a lot naturally. We're raised to
Yes.
be kind and to be earthy and to feed everybody. And that's absolutely wonderful in your family situation, in your friendships, in society. But in a world where bottom lines matter, where people's well being can be at stake, when you run an organization, you're entrusted with your staff, you're entrusted with a budget, you're entrusted with a mission. So you're not the housekeeper, you're not the
Yes.
babysitter, you are a professional, you are an executive, you are a person who needs support from your volunteers, but also supports your volunteers, your leaders. And as such, you deserve respect.
Yes.
So
Let
I've,
me,
go
oh,
ahead.
I kind of want to cast back to something that you started this whole conversation with because
Mhm.
you mentioned it was something that you learned, and I want to dig into the learning. How did you learn to discern the person who's serious intentioned about becoming a mentor and a guide from those who are not, who might be just saying the words because they feel like they're supposed to say that?
You can tell from because people give a lot of verbal cues, but they leave a lot of nonverbal cues. So you can tell from those nonverbal cues when somebody is authentic or not. And authenticity is what makes a relationship between a mentor and mentee successful. As women, we can definitely tell one like the first few seconds that we meet someone, whether that someone is even interested in interacting with us, or it's just a handshake and go. And the one thing that was difficult for me to accept and admit is that it's okay to have both types of interactions with people. Because at some point I was taking personally. I mean, why isn't so and so finding me interested? Why don't we want to have a professional relationship? What have I done? What have I said, right? In
Yeah.
order to jeopardize this relationship? And how would I have done A or said A, B, or C differently? And that is soul consuming. That is distracting from the relationships you really want to cultivate, you really want
Yes.
to grow. So it did take a lot of, again, soul searching and asking the wrong questions, because the question is not why so and so is not interested in me. The question is, how wonderful is that I connected with the other person who not only is
Exactly.
interested in what I have to say or do, but also really wants to work with me and really cares to advise me. And whatever words they say means something. And I need to
Yes.
take them into advisement as opposed to caring about the
E-
rest of the world, right?
Exactly. So someone told me one time that there are kind of three categories of people in the world, and they're roughly break down by thirds. The people that love you, and there's not much you can do that will change that. There are people
Mhm.
that hate you, and there's not much you can do with that. And then there are the third in the middle, and that's where
Mm.
your traction is. Those are the ones that you can sway one way or the other.
So, yes. And then there are the people who just don't care. I
Yeah.
mean, love, hate are
Yeah, just not interested. Yeah,
sentiments that,
exactly.
people, when somebody feels something about you, then they sort of care, right? But when they don't care, you're not important for them, then they should not be important for you. I mean, we take all this time to cultivate our personal relationships, right? You're not best friends with everybody. You're not everybody's confidant. But the ones that the relationships in your personal world that you cultivate are relationships for life. So I have friends that I met 25 years ago and we're very close and they're in a different continent. So why not doing the same thing with our professional relationships? And I understand there is also the element in the professional world where we really need to work with others, right? Build coalitions, build collaborations, because we're better when and stronger when you share resources. But at the same time, even within that world, the other person needs to care. A relationship needs two people to build,
Yeah,
not just one. And it's much
absolutely.
better to invest your energy, invest your psyche, invest your knowledge and your expertise, because you are a professional. You have something to offer to those who really want to take advantage of that and really want to work with you as opposed to everybody else.
I love that. And I think this is a good note to go to our second break on. And what I'd like you to consider, dear listener, over this break is where are you asking the right questions about your network and your coalition building? And where are you asking the wrong questions, perhaps, around your coalition building? And spend a few minutes around that because I think it can be very insightful and very freeing when you realize that, you know what, maybe I am kind of focused on the wrong thing here and I can shift my focus. So spend a little time with that, and we'll be right back from the break.
Oh, check the loud, the wolf here. Tech is ours and we show no fear. No fear. From no fear. No fear.
Thanks for hanging in with us through the break. This is Zofia Morales. I am back with the amazing and wonderful Stella Kafka. And before the break, we were talking about building your network and asking the right questions around the networking and coalition building that you're doing. And I know you had talked about discovering your mentors, and have done a fair amount of that in your life as well. So let's talk a little bit about mentoring. What has the role been in your life as far as being mentored and then mentoring others?
So, yes, we did talk a lot about being mentored, right? And the value of mentoring. And this is something that hasn't changed. I have matured as a CEO. I led a second organization at some point, the American Meteorological Society, much larger, much more complicated. And I'm actually right now advising as a consultant on governance, on board relationships, on operations, sometimes on fundraising, but definitely communication. And this is a position that I cultivated over decades of work and a confidence that I cultivated over decades of work. I do have mentors right now. I do have individuals I can approach and reach out to at times of doubt and at times of advice. But I also know how to find my resources, right, when I need
Right.
them. So this is something that you learn from experience. At some point, though, I realized that one of the most important roles that I would take was be a mentor myself, helping and elevating others, and actually, in general, advancing girls and women in science has been a defining pillar of my career, a mission that fuels my own personal leadership, advocacy, and program development in the environments that I have been in. For me, it's really very important to see barriers being eliminated if possible, foster inclusive opportunities, and create meaningful pathways for mentorship and leadership development for young women who aspire to be in a leadership position, but also for young women who just want to find their voice. There's nothing magic there. It's about making sure that individuals know and have access to opportunities. They are aware of their strengths and they work to eliminate perceptions that are holding them back. And
Yes.
also make sure that they connect with others who have similar backgrounds and similar interests in order to build a very strong coalition of supporters. We all support each other. So no matter how brave we seem to be, we're imposter syndrome is true. It's real and it's very strong among women. We all need someone to tell us, no, you're wearing the wrong goggles right now. Take them off. There's something else going on. Let's unpack that something else. Let go of your own perceptions or misperception of who you are and what you can do. And let's see what the obstacle is here, what the challenge is here in order to move forward. And by the way, the whole process is going to make you stronger. It's going to make you more aware of your strengths. And it's going to teach you a very valuable lesson on how to overcome them.
Yes.
So
Well, and
for me,
I love that for women because we are so often raised with this idea that we have to be perfect, that we have to have all of the qualifications in order to step forward and do a thing. And that leaves us at a distinct disadvantage to the guys who are not given that same message coming up. They're given the, well, you've got half of what you need. Go out there and you'll figure it out, right? Whereas as women, we're told we need to be perfectly prepared and perfectly qualified. And that leaves us at a distinct disadvantage to our peers in a great many places.
we are primarily taught to stay in our lane.
Yes.
And that lane is being defined very strictly. And that lane has very contradictory characteristics. There's one little clip from Barbie, the movie, right?
That was
One
the
of the
one
women
that
is
came
like,
in my mind. Yes.
you have to be thin, but call it healthy. You have to be perfect, but not too perfect because then you're frightening. And you have to challenge someone, but with a smile. You have to be successful, but not too successful. You have to be perfect, but not too perfect. It's just like you can't get it right.
Yeah, there
And it,
is no sweet spot there.
there's no sweet spot, but at the same time, in terms of personality, it's like you have to be Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and accept a gazillion more personalities at the same time in moderation so that you're not threatening.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so it's exhausting. Even thinking about it is exhausting. No one said, just be you. No
Yes.
one gives you, and we think that even for that, we need permission. We need permission to be us. We need permission to take space. We need permission to be strong. We need permission to be in executive leadership positions. And if somebody asks you, okay, so who are you going to ask permission from? The answer is the whole world, because different people want you to do, expects you to do different things. And you're like,
Yes.
okay, even that is exhausting. Am I a good mother? Am I a good partner? Am I a good citizen? Am I a good volunteer? Am I a good professional? Am I a good scientist? Oh my gosh. Ooh, am I a good human being? It's just, it's a full-time job just thinking about it, let alone doing it. So at some point, mentorship is about having someone to tell you, you be you, you need to feel comfortable in your own skin. It doesn't matter how you look in your professional world. Well, actually, it shouldn't matter.
Shouldn't
It
matter.
shouldn't matter,
Exactly. There's a human
right?
psychology thing that still has.
There's definitely a human psychology and social expectations that at some point we can unpack at a different time. But you are in that particular position, you bringing yourself is an asset. You're hired to do something. You are very capable of doing this something. And because you're bringing your own strengths, your personality, that something is going to be above and beyond. And don't let anyone put any doubts in your mind about that. That's what a mentor does.
Yeah,
They actually, without telling you all those things, just helping you navigate all those challenges that appear in front of you because you are in part of the system, part of the challenge you cannot see from the outside in. They see from the outside in. So in
exactly.
principle, I never save the world. What I've done is like, told people, what do you want to do? Forget about what people expect of you. What do you want to do? I spent 2.5 years in Chile in a program that was bringing students to the observatory to do scientific projects with scientists. These are undergraduate students, majors in physics. And I made a very conscious decision to engage mostly female Chilean students in the program because they don't usually have access to this kind of opportunities. They don't have strong role models. They don't have dedicated mentors, resources that men have access in
Absolutely.
abundance. And I remember this one time after dinner, we were waiting for the sun to set outside the telescope, we're having tea, and I was sitting there with one of my Chilean students. She's like, I have a problem. And I'm like, okay, go ahead. And she said, I like science. What's wrong with me? I was
Nothing.
like, excuse you?
Not
Okay,
a single thing.
that's not what I expected to hear, but okay, tell me more. It's like, well, my family expects me to get married and have kids, and they don't expect me to be a professional in my field. So after I get my bachelor's, I need to have a family. I need to have babies. I want to go to graduate school. So what's wrong with me? I mean, it was mind blowing, even having this absolutely brilliant young woman promise the sky is not the limit. She's sitting in one of the world class facilities, having coffee before she starts doing research, acquiring data for original
Yes.
research, telling me what's wrong with me. And the first thing that came out of my mouth, do you think there's something wrong with me? I already had my PhD at the time. She's like, oh, no, 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 no. And then having a conversation of what your aspirations are and your family's expectations don't necessarily clash. But I realized at that point that on top of societal challenges, we have to deal with cultural science challenges, what our
Yeah.
country expects us to do, how our parents are raised, what they want from us. And at some point, we can't exactly tell them, and now I'm an adult, it's all about what I want from me because the family unit is very strong. How do you even have this conversation with your parents? How
It
do you
it
even
can
have this
be
conversation with your environment?
it can be super duper difficult. I know in our
Yeah.
family, I'm American. My husband was raised in Central America, and the nieces on that side. I have a niece and a nephew, and the grandparents, not my husband's parents, but the other ones, were like, we'll pay for the education for the kids. Great. And so they went to private school. And then when it came time to go to college, they paid for the older brother's college, no problem. The younger, the daughter, is planning, oh, well, I want to do this thing and in France. And because all the doors were supposed to be quote unquote open. And when it came time for her enrollment and tuition, it was like, oh, no, 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 the girls don't need higher education. It's like, whoa, time out. So there is a significant amount of that around,
Okay.
even in cultures that are, I want to say, that as a whole profess that yes, there's value from everybody working, there are still pockets of, you know what? No, not in our family. That's not how that goes in our family. And so, yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge that these can be very challenging conversations. Now, she went to school.
She
There was
did.
no
Oh,
question
well,
she was going to go to
cool.
school.
There you go.
But yeah, there was definitely conflict with the grandparents over who was paying for it. And
See,
I
so
love the fact that she went, okay, fine, I'll just do it different.
exactly. So this is exactly what the role of a mentor is, trying to think outside the box and provide resources for those individuals. To conclude the story I was saying, that student did go to graduate school. She chose
Good.
to go to a Chilean graduate school. She's doing extremely well. At some point, even reframing the challenge for them, telling them that there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're taking this out of the equation right now because that's not the conversation we're having. Second, let's see what you want from your life, right? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to have kids? Do you want to be a professional? Do you want to be a professor, right? Do you want to go to industry? Or what are your aspirations right now? And by right now, I mean giving people permission to follow a career trajectory where they can actually zigzag. I zigzagged a lot in my life. I went from academia to the nonprofit world, and who knows what's going to happen. But that's okay. You learn something on the way. You grow with whatever you have. You offer something back to the community. And as a professional, you become stronger and you become better at what you're doing while actually keeping your eyes on reality of what needs to happen and how can you actually help the world. Mentorship, I think, is one of the most fulfilling experiences as a professional. And by mentorship, I don't only mean someone who is more senior mentoring and advising someone who's more junior. Peer mentorship is extremely important when we are at this particular stage of our careers, where, again, going back to what we were saying at the very beginning of this podcast, when you're the only one, when you're alone, when you're in an environment that is not exactly female friendly, where you're trying to break a glass ceiling and the ceiling is made of steel, and it's actually resisting in ways that you didn't anticipate, but exactly because you didn't anticipate, you don't have the resources to actually break that ceiling and find solutions. And you feel alone, you feel lonely, and you feel there's something wrong with you, where the world, that particular environment, is not prepared to accept an amazing person that is you. I love mentoring individuals. I respect my mentors. I am in a peer mentorship group where individuals are bringing not only their frustration, but also their successes, because
Yes.
sometimes we forget to celebrate us. We forget to
Exactly.
celebrate
I
all the
knocked that
wonderful things
down.
we
Now I'm
do.
moving on to the next thing.
Right. It's like boom, boom, boom. And sometimes you're like, take a breath. Let's hear what you've accomplished. And by the way, tell me how you accomplished it because I will learn something from you, from your successes. So it's wonderful to be in that particular environment. And if not anything else, I would like to invite your speakers. They want to connect with me. I am on LinkedIn. If they want to take this conversation outside this platform and whatever I
Absolutely.
can do to help.
We'll have all your contact information in the show notes so they can find that there. And I think you've mentioned a couple of times changing the world. And I think a lot of times when we think about changing the world, it's like, well, I'm going to go out and I'm going to change the system and regulations and this kind of thing. And I think where the rubber really meets the road is in every relationship you have with everyone. And mentorship is an amazing way to begin to change the world because even if you don't find a female mentor, if you find a male mentor, you're still changing the world in that the way that people change their attitude is through their interaction with quote unquote other, whatever other is, whether it's someone of a different political persuasion, another culture, a different sex, that whatever it is, that's how opinions start to change. And so when you are mentored by someone who's different from you, you're helping to change the world. When you mentor someone who is having the same struggles as you are also changing the world in a beautiful way because you're bringing more people to the table who can have more of these relationships that start to normalize the thing,
Yeah,
whatever the
again,
difference is. Yes.
and
So
again, our difference is what makes us special. There is a common thread in every relationship, and that is we care to interact with each other. And as long as that relationship is respectful, then we learn from each other.
absolutely. And so, yes, every person that you touch, you're changing the world for the better or the worse. And I sincerely hope it's always for the better to the best of our abilities. Thank you so much for joining me today. It has been a real sincere pleasure to have you on the show today.
It's such a privilege to talk to you, and good luck with everything. And thank you for having me.
And thank you, dear listener, for investing your time here. I know you've got a million different places you could be spending your hour, and I'm glad that you've invested your time here. And I hope that that investment yields great fruit for you as you go down the road, which is why I do this show. I would love to hear from you in the comments or drop me an email to Zofia@STEMandStilettos.com. And just let me know, what did you think of the show? Did you have a good takeaway? Are there improvements I could make? Who do you want to hear from? What topics do you want to discuss? I want to know all of it. And just how are you? And until next week, go out, be bold, be beautiful, and be totally, completely you.